Hey guys, welcome back to my first episode of Maximizing Your Virtual Music Classroom. Today we're going to be talking about cameras. I'll be giving you some tips and tricks on how to use a camera that you probably already own, or if not, what to look out for when you're buying a camera for use in conferencing apps such as Zoom or for recording videos for YouTube or other purposes. So let's get started. So if you haven't watched my previous video yet, I would recommend that you do so first, because in that video I demonstrated my own setup. And as you saw from the beginning of the video when I was doing this little improvisation on the piano for you guys, that I switched from camera 2, which is this one, side view, to camera 3, which is hands view. And on top of that, I also had a little picture-in-picture of my frontal camera. So during lessons, the student can always keep eye contact with the teacher. And I think that is quite important. Now let's go over to the fourth view. And let's put my face on the top left-hand corner instead. Yeah, you can do that with the Atom Mini Pro. And you can put it anywhere you want. See? It's cool, isn't it? And you can adjust the size and stuff. But for now, I'll leave it at its default settings. Let's go ahead and start this little presentation here. This is a share of my computer screen. So I have here a bunch of PowerPoint slides, which will hopefully help you to visualize what you might be interested in buying, some example camera models, pros and cons of each, and as well as a buyer's guide. So let's go on first and see what kind of cameras we'll be covering. We have ourselves webcams, camcorders, compact cameras, DSLR and mirrorless cameras, as well as additional equipment and accessories. Let's talk first about webcams, shall we? There are so many models of webcams from so many manufacturers out there, it's going to be hard to cover every one of them. But these are some models that are quite famous at the moment in the market, and they're all very good quality and may cater to several different budgets. In general, webcams are not so expensive. You can get one for under $100. So the advantages of webcams is that they're cheap, they're small, and they're plug and play. Meaning to say it comes attached with a USB cable and you just plug the other end into the PC or your laptop and the computer instantly recognizes it, usually without any driver installation, and you can already start using it with your Zoom or Skype or Facebook Messenger conferencing apps. So it's really just as simple as that. The cons of webcams though is that they are inferior quality if you compare them with professional cameras or even nowadays good quality compact cameras and camcorders. I mean, they are really small in size, so their lenses are also really small. And this is something like if you compare a smartphone camera, which has, by the way, gone a long way, and compare them to a lens this size. So of course, you're going to have trade-offs here. So webcams are a good upgrade from the inbuilt camera of your laptop if your laptop has a webcam built in, but it's not definitely going to give you the best picture quality if you're looking to filming yourself performing or giving tutorials or something like that. Webcams also have another disadvantage. They are not very good in low light. And how it works with cameras is that the darker the room, the more the camera has to compensate by increasing the artificial brightness levels, also known as ISO. So if your lens of the camera is not a very bright lens, and of course if your camera itself does not possess a very high quality processor, then you're going to notice noise, which is this things, little artifacts in your picture, the darker your room is. So to compensate for that, I would advise you to be in a very well lit room or to buy yourself some lights like video lights or ring lights if you want the best quality picture from your webcam. So that's one thing to note. Professional cameras also face the same problem, but they usually have a much higher tolerance to low light. As you can see with my camera here, I do have the video light shining right at me right now, but if I turn it away, as you can see, it's still rather clear, even though maybe you will see some artifacts already appear in the background or not, I can't tell, but it has a much higher tolerance. So ISO is basically the term used of artificially brightening up the image to compensate for the lack of lighting. Another con of using a webcam is placement. Most webcams come with a clip-on base, meant to clip onto a computer screen or your laptop screen, and some of them do have, like as you can see with the Microsoft Livecam or the Razer, it comes with a flat base, so you can actually put it on a table. But it's probably not ideal to put your web camera on a table, so you want it on an elevated surface. And the easiest way to elevate a camera is, of course, on a tripod. So I would advise, if you're getting a webcam, find a webcam model that has a tripod mount. For example, the Microsoft Livecam Studio on the bottom right example has a little hole in the bottom of the base. And with that hole at the bottom, you can screw it onto a tripod and position your camera wherever you want in the room. Of course, bear in mind that the restriction of the placement in this case will still come from the length of the USB cable. Some webcams come with a non-detachable USB cable, and so you're at the mercy of the length that's provided for you, or you can of course get a USB extender, a male to female USB cable as it is called. If your webcam comes with a detachable cable, then you can also purchase a longer cable for your webcam should you decide to put your webcam further away from you. The last thing that I would like to mention is that webcams are meant for solo use. What do I mean by that? You plug the webcam into the computer, but you can only select one webcam at a time in your conferencing app. There are ways around it. I know in Zoom there's an option also to show two cameras at one time or two video sources, but by default, a webcam is meant to be used solo. So if you want to have multiple cameras displaying at the same time and stuff, webcam is not the way to go. Okay, moving on. Leading brands of web cameras. We have ourselves Logitech and Microsoft. Like I mentioned before, there are plenty of web camera models, but Logitech and Microsoft have been in the webcam business for a really long time, and they make really excellent quality webcams. So you can't go wrong with either of these two brands here. Choose a minimum full HD resolution. Nowadays, you have 4K as your standard, and web cameras do come in 4K quality nowadays. If you have the budget to buy one, go ahead and do so. Of course, your bottleneck will be the conferencing app. Zoom and Skype does not transmit 4K video, but for example, if you happen to use your webcam to make a YouTube video, YouTube does support 4K and up to 60 frames per second. So that brings us to my next point. Consider buying a webcam with a high frame rate. So what is frame rate? Frame rate is the number of pictures taken and being displayed in succession per second. Meaning to say, if you have, for example, 24 frames per second, it means in 1 second, 24 pictures are displaying in quick succession. So it goes without saying that the more frames per second, the smoother your video is going to be. So if you have 60 frames per second, for example, then every movement that I make, in this case, my video is now shot in 50 frames per second, which is the Europe standard for high frame rate. It's going to be much smoother than if I shot in 24 frames per second when the video processes quick movements. So why would you want high frame rate? For example, if you're playing the piano, and let's go back to the keyboard view to demonstrate here. If I was shooting this in 24 frames per second, then as I move my hands, the faster I move my hands, the more blur out the hands are going to be. But with 60 frames per second, even when I move faster, the motion feels more fluid. So if you're going for a clearer motion effect with less motion blur, then you'll want a higher frame rate. Bear in mind that for lessons and tutorials and stuff like that, It's good to have a high frame rate. It's easier also for the teacher to see, if you're the student, to see what fingerings you're using, if you're playing something rather agile. And of course, it is also good for the student to be able to see the teacher as the teacher is demonstrating. Ignore the built-in mic. What I mean by this is, if we're doing music lessons, we definitely want to invest in an external microphone, and the built-in microphones of webcams will not be sufficient enough, so we can forget about using it, and so you don't have to care so much about the advertised audio quality of the webcam in this case.